Madison City School students completed their first week of virtual learning. Dr. Ed Nichols, the superintendent for Madison City Schools, joins us now to talk more about this school year. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you.
A significant number of educators expressed interest in teaching the virtual learning option on a more long-term basis because of their own pre-existing conditions or a family member's health issue. This could potentially lead to a shortage of teachers in the classroom. How will the district handle this situation?
We've been very fortunate as we looked at both sides of the virtual folks who wanted a long-term virtual and those teachers who needed that option due to underlying health conditions. We were very blessed that those numbers came out in a pretty balanced way, but there were areas where we had to ask teachers to do a little bit of both, to teach a couple of periods a day on the school-based side and maybe a virtual side. And then we had teachers come to us and they said, you know, I've got my students and I don't want to lose all of my students. And so they offered to do that blended learning on their own. And so, you know, right now we're in pretty good shape. We have had to reach out to some retired teachers and see if they would help us out a little bit on a class, maybe one period a day on the virtual side. But, you know, somebody asked me several weeks ago, what do you think will be a takeaway from this experience of schools? And I think the takeaway will be the virtual academy that we've created. And I see that being something we use going forward long term in some way.
What are the latest developments with the coronavirus task force for local schools and community leaders?
Still, we've had some meetings. A lot of that group broke off into smaller groups. And then I know that Dr. Finley in Huntsville and Dr. Perkins in Madison County and I have talked about setting up a task force with some of our local health leaders to meet regularly as we begin to look at what transitioning back in to the school-based will look like. So we'll still use that task force as we now can start school in this virtual. We're going to pull that task force back together on our side to look at the procedures we use following these new ADPH toolkit guidelines of how we re-enter schools.
There continue to be changes and challenges to football schedules. How is the district navigating this situation?
Coaches at both high schools and our athletic director and our principals at both high schools, we are at an opening game in Mobile, and they just felt like that with that distance and hotel rooms and the long bus ride and all of that combined right now, that was probably more challenge and would take their focus away from what they really wanted to do. So they asked to cancel that game. And then we had another game in Auburn that was scheduled as the first game in August, and they worked it out with the folks down there. We both had an open date in September, and so they wanted to move that back to kind of wait and see about that travel. So they came to me and asked if I would support them in that, and I told them that I would. So that we just kind of altered a couple of games.
What is your message to families feeling overwhelmed and concerned about the future of their children's education?
My message would be that, one, our teachers are incredibly resilient, and they are working as hard as possible to prepare for the first few weeks of school in this virtual platform. As I said all along, we're monitoring it every day. We're not locked into saying that it's going to be 9 weeks. We're going to look at the guidance, and again, we just got some yesterday, and so we're going to do our best to monitor that and prepare plans on how we can bring our students back. The last thing we want to do is bring them back and then have to turn around and quarantine and send folks home. So we want to be able to have a plan in place that brings everybody back in a way that we can sustain. And so I would just ask them again, appreciate their patience. I know it's a very challenging time, and that our teachers are going to work very hard, and our principals. I can't say enough about our leadership team and what they've done to make sure that we get a good start to school, even though it's different. And I tell our people all the time, it's going to be a different year, but it doesn't have to not be a great year. It can be a great year, It's just going to be different, and we have to accept that challenge, and I'm proud of our folks. They have accepted that challenge.
Dr. Ed Nichols, Superintendent for Madison City Schools, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to have a great year.